All right, welcome back. Episode 2 of the E.O. Smith Sports Talk podcast. My name is Brendan. We have another great episode for everyone today. But first, I want to quickly thank everyone who reached out with feedback and support from last week's episode. And if you're enjoying these episodes, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and follow us on Instagram at EOS Sports Talk Club. Let's not waste any more time, though, because there's a busy weekend in the NFL. We got a lot of football to talk, so let's get right to it. All right, as we transition now into our NFL segment, I'm joined by Parker, Leon, Alex, and Nolan. I think it was a busy week of NFL games, but it was headlined by the Bucs absolutely beating down on the Packers.
Yeah, this game was a surprise to all of us. Packers really looked weak in that game. I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw his first 2 picks of the season, including a pick six. I don't know. I mean, this is the first good defense that Aaron Rodgers has faced. Bucs defense looking really solid so far this year. Obviously put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, made him get the ball out early, and it affected him. So, I don't know. I mean, the Bucs going forward looks like they could have a chance to really make a run in the playoffs here, and we'll see how Green Bay does going forward.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers just lost the MVP race. It's easily Russell Wilson after that game. Russell Wilson, MVP, baby! Let Russ cook!
I think Aaron Rodgers needed that game. The whole Packers needed to know what it's like to get blown out, to keep their. Aaron Rodgers even said it, that they need that loss to help keep them in reality, keep them in the season, and I think they'll bounce right back.
Yeah, I think this really calls into question the Packers. Are they like a legitimate contender? I think it really exposed a lot of weaknesses on defense and on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. They looked really weak. Aaron Rodgers looked terrible. I think this game pretty much knocks him out of MVP contention. And I think as bad as it was for the Packers, it was equally as impressive a game for the Buccaneers. And I think out of all the teams in the NFC, the Buccaneers are probably the best team. Out of all the teams in the NFL, the Buccaneers are the best equipped team to handle the Chiefs. I think they got a bruising run game with Ronald Jones, who's looked really well so far. And obviously that defense, in my opinion, probably the best defense in the league. And I think the formula to beat the Chiefs is to control the clock, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, and when he is on the field, shut down the run and slow him down. And so I think the best team equipped to do that is probably the Buccaneers.
Carter, let me ask you this, Carter. What looked worse, the Packers lost to the Bucs or the Chiefs lost to the Raiders a few weeks ago?
I'd say probably the Chiefs lost to the Raiders, because I think the Chiefs are quite clearly the better team, and so I think that loss kind of gave teams a blueprint. I said this last week. I think it gave them a blueprint to as to how to beat the Chiefs, and I think that's something that teams can look back on as the season goes forward for how can we slow down Mahomes and how can we beat that Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's a bad loss for the Packers, but that Bucs defense has been shutting down pretty much everybody. And the Packers offense has looked unstoppable. And then they got to back their best weapon, Devontae Adams. And the Bucs absolutely shut them down. They got those huge interceptions. They made Aaron Rodgers look like a young quarterback. And I think the Bucs have to be the NFC favorites right now with that defense. I didn't even think the Bucs offense was clicking. You got Gronk kind of played more like the Gronk that we've known throughout his career, but that offense didn't really get clicking. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin didn't do all too much. Ronald Jones was kind of moving the ball for them. And I think if it wasn't for their defense, they'd definitely lose that game to the Packers.
Well, Aaron Rodgers should have had a rushing touchdown. In that first drive, should he have had a rushing touchdown? Because there was argument. Did you guys see that?
Sorry, who'd you say?
Aaron Rodgers. In that first drive, diving for the end zone, they called him down as a defensive receiver, as the defensive runner at the one.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good call not to give him the touchdown there, because if they're going to overprotect quarterbacks, then they have to give defenses some leverage. Because if the quarterback's going to slide there, like either the defenseman, either it's a touchdown or the defensive player goes to hit him. And if he goes to hit him, they're going to call, a 15-yard penalty because he hit the quarterback while giving himself up.
The defensive player did dive at his ribs and hit him with a shot. But they didn't call flag and they called him.
How about that dance, though? He really hit that dance like that.
What?
Aaron Rodgers really hit that dance like that at the end.
Oh, the Key and Peele dance.
Yeah. The triple pump.
All right, let's
I
move
mean,
on. Let's move on
does
from
this
the
call
Bucks.
really matter in the grand scheme of things, though? I mean, they scored the touchdown anyway. It's not like it affected the scoreline of the game.
Yeah, no. I think it just showed how good that Bucks defense is and how dominant they can be if that offense gets clicking. All right, another dominant offense. Let's go to the Chiefs. They just had a big win over the Bills on Monday Night Football, and they just picked up Le'Veon Bell, one of the best free agents we've seen this late in the season in a long time. How do you guys think that signing is going to affect their playoff run?
The rich keep getting richer. Le'Veon Bell, top running back 2 or 3 years ago, has the holdout in 2018, goes to the Jets, plays subpar football on the Jets, maybe thanks to the offensive line, maybe thanks to him. But now I think him trying to prove himself on that Chiefs run game, with that O-line, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, with Patrick Mahomes in the air game, I think it's only getting worse for opposing teams.
Yeah, this game was a huge statement for the Chiefs' run game, too. CEH with 161 yards on 26 carries, the most carries by any Chiefs running back since Andy Reid has taken over as head coach there. I mean, it's just shown that the Chiefs are such a well-rounded team. They can run the ball now just as well as they can throw it. They've always been known as punishing other teams in the air rather than on the ground. This game is a huge statement for their running game. And now adding Le'Veon Bell as well as CEH, their run game with their passing game, they'll be unstoppable going forward.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, fantasy owners beware. I think Clyde has lost a lot of value with this Le'Veon Bell signing. I think really that's the biggest loser is CEH fantasy owners in this in this Le'Veon Bell signing. Obviously, the Chiefs get another guy who can catch really well out of the backfield. He's a really patient and smart runner, and I think a lot of his lack of success in New York could be due to coaches not utilizing him in the way that makes him the most useful to the team. And so I think you might see that. Andy Reid, obviously an offensive genius. I think he'll find ways to get Le'Veon Bell the ball, and I think Le'Veon will find a lot of success in Kansas City.
I disagree with you. I mean, I do think it's going to be a detriment to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's going to get less carries, but I still think Clyde's their guy. Le'Veon Bell's only signed to a one-year deal. Clyde's a rookie that they drafted in the first round, that Patrick Mahomes even explicitly told them that he wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I still think going forward, Clyde's going to be their main guy, but I do think Le'Veon Bell's only going to help that team in the pass game and on third downs.
I actually don't think it's too big of a signing because I think they're going to use Clyde Edwards-Helaire as their guy, and I actually think the Le'Veon Bell signing is more of, preventing their rookie running back from getting totally beaten up, being a workhorse back, because, we see how short running backs' careers can be, kind of to take some carries away from him, take some hits away from him. But I want to talk about other AFC powerhouses, the Titans and the Steelers. For me, actually, I think those are the top two teams in the AFC right now because of their defense. I think the Steelers have a top 3 defense in the league. Why? I mean, they're the 2 undefeated teams.
That's ridiculous. I think
the Steelers are the last one.
You're dumb if you don't think it's the Chiefs. You're dumb if you don't think that Chiefs are the favorites for the AFC slot in the Super Bowl. The Titans have looked really well, and they definitely are one of those teams that has the formula to beat Kansas City. Steelers, they've looked good too, but are you really going to bet against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes? You're really going to bet against those two right now? Even though, they have that one loss, but who have the Steelers played? Who have the Titans played?
I'm not betting against the Chiefs. I think I'm betting on Derrick Henry. Late in December in a cold game. I think it's going to be in Tennessee. They're going to, you just said the way to beat the Chiefs is to hold the ball and run the ball. I think that's what Derrick Henry and the Titans do best. They beat you with the run. They beat you with play action. They have a good defense, and I think the Steelers as well have one of the best defenses in the league. James Conner, they've got some great weapons. Juju, James Washington, Deontay Johnson. Chase Claypool has emerged as one of the best rookies, if not the best rookie so far this season. I think they're 2 teams that are dangerous and Super Bowl contenders right now.
Brennan.
King Henry is looking like King James right now. King Henry is dominating on the turf, and I believe that if they're able to beat Derrick Henry that many times, those 200 yards, they have a chance to beat the Chiefs.
I just don't see any team stopping this Chiefs offense going forward. Now that they've established the run game, you can't stop their Patrick Mahomes' arm as well as CH plus Le'Veon Bell in the backfield. I just don't see anybody stopping that offense.
Benny, can you say that the overtime, barely pulled out the win after the Texans, who I'm not saying anything bad with the Texans, actually, they're my underdog team this year, but do you think that shows light for the Titans, that shows them as a powerhouse? Only taking the Texans to overtime, of the 1-5 Texans.
Yeah, but look, I think the Texans are a pretty good team, as you pointed out last week. I mean, you said they were an underdog team turning their season around. I think they have good players on offense and defense. Deshaun Watson, who's obviously been one of the best players in the league the last couple of years. A win's a win, right? I mean, the Seahawks barely snuck past the Patriots, who are now 2-3, and it's still a win. It doesn't matter. It's going to count the same on the record. It's going to give them home field advantage in the playoffs, probably. So I think it's a big time team, with Derrick Henry, ground and pound, play action, a decent, a pretty good defense. I think they're going to be a team who makes a deep playoff run this year.
I don't agree.
I love this Titans team. I think this Titans team is really unique in my eyes because I think they're one of the only teams in the NFL, maybe the only team in the NFL, where the guy on the team, the headline star, the guy who's getting paid the big bucks, who kind of like the offense revolves around, is a running back in Derrick Henry. And I think that's that's really cool to have a team that's kind of like focused on the grit and grind, the run game. Ryan Tannehill kind of plays backseat to Derrick Henry. Like he's the guy, and I think I think you can find success doing that, and I think the Titans definitely have, and I think it's really cool to kind of like see that in a league that's focused more than ever on how we can throw the ball deep with a really good quarterback.
As good as this Titans offense is, I'm just worried about their defense, especially after giving up 36 points to a struggling Texans defense, giving up 4 passing touchdowns to Deshaun Watson, who hasn't looked all that great this year. I just think you're not going to be able to maintain such a good record in this league after giving up 36 points to such a poor offense. I mean, they're going to be able to face better opponents on offense. If their defense continues to struggle like this, I don't see them getting by as they have so far.
Really quick, I want to point out, Alex, I think what you just said was massive disrespect to Ryan Tannehill, who has now entered the MVP conversation with what the numbers he's been putting up the last few weeks, as Leon's laughing at me. But I think, Derrick Henry is definitely a stud. He's probably their guy. But Ryan Tannehill, let's just look at his stats this week. 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's put up a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. That play action offense, I think their offensive coordinator is entering head coaching candidacy. I think that offense is as unstoppable as any in the league.
But Derrick Henry is what allows that Ryan Tannehill success. Derrick Henry, the play action, you need to throw every guy you got on the line in the trenches to stop Derrick Henry. And I think when they do that, he causes everybody to come in, you get the play action, and that's what's giving Tannehill the easy numbers that he's coming out with.
But couldn't you say the same for Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers, or Chris Carson and Russell Wilson, or like whatever it is? Couldn't you say the same that way?
Not really. Because
Aaron Jones has not rushed for over 200 yards in a game in each of the past 3 seasons.
Exactly.
Dominant, unlike any other running back in this league. He just ran for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns with another 90-plus yard touchdown run.
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry's probably the best pure running back in the league. He's such a strong, dominant, big, explosive running back in him. Like he's got insane speed for a dude who's 230 plus pounds, something like that. And like nobody that physically intimidating should be that fast, and yet he is. Probably got the best stiff arm in the league too. Like he's like definitely, in my opinion, the best pure running back in the league. And I really like what you said, Parker. Like that Tannehill in that offense is opened up by Derrick Henry's ability to pump out 5 yards of carry against a 9-man box. Like, it's that offense revolves around Derrick Henry in a way that not many offenses revolve around their running back nowadays.
I absolutely agree. I don't think Ryan Tannehill has the success that he's had so far this season without Derrick Henry dominating like he has.
All right, let's switch it up to the Steelers, though. Name me a defense in the past 20 years that's been more dominant than the Steelers' defense this year.
The Patriots last year. I mean,
Yeah,
the Colts. I think the Colts this year are as good. Like, I'm not going to give the Steelers, all-time defense consideration. However, I agree that they are an elite defense. Guys like T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, Devin Bush. They just lost for the year, which could be a huge loss. I think he was 6th pick last year. Yeah, Minka. But I think Devin Bush's injury, I believe he just tore his ACL last week. He's a 5th or 6th pick of the draft last season. He's really been a stud for them, holding down the middle, calling the plays. I think that's a big loss that could hurt them as a Super Bowl contender.
I mean, the 4-1 Browns, who are now 4-2, the dominant-looking Browns offense, they made them look like a peewee football team out there.
Yeah, but I don't think they are a dominant offense. Do you really think Baker Mayfield's an elite quarterback or a dominant quarterback? He's a bust. Agreed, Leon. He's a total bust.
Baker a straight bust. He's done. After this season, he's out.
Yeah, I think that Browns offense really revolved around that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combination at running back, and it's very similar to the Titans offense where the play action opens up Baker Mayfield's ability to succeed. And Baker at this point in his career is essentially a game manager. Like that's his role. Like Baker's terrible. He's probably a bust, and he's failing at what his role should be, and that's a game manager. I'd like to go back to the Steelers. I think that Devin Bush, it's a big loss. But I think they really don't have to worry about that when you have the offense that the Steelers do. I mean, Big Ben, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner. I mean, like, those are all studs right there, like, that can get it done. On top of that, they got Mike Tomlin. I like Mike Tomlin as a coach. I think the Steelers team is definitely something to look at going forward.
Yep. I want to talk about another team who has a good record, the Chicago Bears out of the NFC North. Do you guys think with Nick Foles at quarterback, who's a very, very streaky player, they have some pretty weak weapons. Their running game's been weak so far, but a strong defense. Do you think they're a playoff contender or even a Super Bowl contender sitting at, I believe, 5-1 now?
Playoff or Super Bowl? Playoff or Super Bowl?
Either. What are they?
Playoff, not Super Bowl.
I mean, when you start the season out 5-1, obviously you're going to have a good chance at going to the playoffs. I've had trouble coming around to this Bears team so far this year. I'll say I've been sleeping on them all season. I still don't know if I'm fully sold on them being a serious contender. I mean, with Nick Foles at the helm, David Montgomery is their lead back, the best wide receiver, Allen Robinson, who is talented, just hasn't been able to do much on this Bears team the past couple of years. I say they do make the playoffs. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss the playoffs when you start off 5-1. I just don't see them going much farther than that.
This is a stacked NFC conference this year. I mean, there's like the NFC North and the NFC West, some of the two best divisions in football. And I think, as good as the Chicago Bears record is right now, I don't really see them as a playoff team. I think the NFC North has a lot of really good teams in the Green Bay Packers and Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions could definitely make a run at the playoffs this year. But it'll be tough. That NFC West division definitely has at least 3, maybe 4 teams who could make a run at a playoff spot. And so in a division like that where it's so stacked, obviously we talked about that division last week, in a division where you might have 4 teams snag a playoff spot, given the extra wild cards this year, it really is a race to see who can finish at the top of the division. And so I don't think the Bears have a realistic shot at a wild card spot, because I think that NFC North team, I think the Lions might steal a few games from them, and the Packers too. I think, in order for the Bears to make the playoffs, I'll put it this way, in order for the Bears to make the playoffs, they have to win the NFC North, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, I don't think.
Staying in that division, what do you guys think about the Saints playoff chances with Mike Thomas coming back this week?
I think that division is the Buccaneers division to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, but with 3 wild card spots, you don't think the Saints can take one of those spots?
No, like I said, I think at least 2 of those wild card spots are going to the NFC West. I think Seattle probably wins that division, and I think either the Rams and the 49ers or the Cardinals get a wild card spot, maybe all three, given the expanded playoff this year. I think in order to have a guaranteed spot in the playoffs, I think you have to win your division in the NFC West. And so I think even if the Saints, you have to take a really, really good record Saints team to make the playoffs in that division. Because I think that's the Buccaneers division, and assuming the Saints don't win the division, they have to be a really good wild card team.
That would be a pretty disappointing result if they didn't make the playoffs. I think they're a team built to win now with Drew Brees at quarterback. Guys like Demario Davis on defense who are getting up there in age, but still at the top of the league at their position. All right, let's move on. Sorry.
Do you guys think they have a chance to win the division? I mean, you guys are talking about how they have to earn a wild card spot. I mean, I've seen good things from the Buccaneers, and I've also seen very bad things. I think they're an inconsistent team, and if they can pull it together, I think they can win the division. But I still think the Saints have a good chance to win that division.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is right now, it's the Buccaneers' division to lose. But, I mean, the Saints are getting back Michael Thomas this year, and I don't think people realize how big of an impact this guy has on the Saints team. I mean, he will absolutely elevate their team to another level from when they've been playing so far. He only played, half of week one. So with him coming back, I think the Saints do have a chance to win that division, take it from the Bucs. But it is, as of right now, the Bucs division to lose.
Yeah, I agree, Nolan. I think Mike Thomas can have a huge positive impact on that team, but I think something to call into question is his ability to stay, to deal with off-the-field troubles. And, by off-the-field troubles, I mean that off-the-field trouble is probably a bad way to put it. Just his ability to play, whether he gets into trouble with his attitude on the team. We've already seen him get suspended this year for punching C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the face in practice, and that kept him out another week. And also his ability to stay healthy. He's struggled with injuries this year. And so I think, he does have a great positive impact on the team when he's playing. I think one thing to question is his ability to continue to stay healthy and stay out of trouble. I don't think it'll be the same. I don't think that connection will be the same this year. Drew Brees hasn't looked as good. He's had struggle throwing the ball deep down the field, and so when that happens, it kind of condenses the field, and it leaves less room for Mike Thomas to operate underneath, where he's so good on those slant routes.
Agreed. I want to switch now back to the AFC. The Dolphins this week, I believe yesterday, they just announced Tua Tagovailoa is taking over the starting job over Ryan Fitzpatrick in a Dolphins team that's tied for second place in the AFC East. Is it a good decision, and what should we expect from Tua?
This move was very, very surprising for me. I mean, when you've got a team, I don't want to say hot, but as hot as the Dolphins right now, after having two blowout victories in 2 weeks in a row with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm, I don't know why you make a change. I mean, obviously this team has rallied together around Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a great leader. He's brought the team together. I don't know why you make a change at this point in the season after winning two blowout victories in a row. I don't know about that one.
I think it's a good change.
I think Tua must have shown something in practice in order for his flying for us to have the trust to put it in. I do believe Tua is going to play really well this week and for more weeks to come. I feel like he's a great player.
No one heard you. But okay, I disagree with you, Nolan. I think bringing in Tua is a good decision. I mean, seeming as Ryan Fitzpatrick has had such success, they had to have seen as much production from Tua in practice as they did in Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think really they're looking at it as Tua's our future guy. They used a high pick on Tua. He's their guy. And I just think Tua's going to come in and pick up exactly where Ryan Fitzpatrick left off.
I think it was a surprising move, but also you have to consider that with the Bills and the Patriots, losing some games that you wouldn't expect them to lose. I think we all know they're still a strong team in the AFC, especially with the AFC East being so weak. You get to play the Jets twice, 2 free wins. I think the Dolphins probably realize that they're not going to be in the playoffs and they're not going to be Super Bowl contenders. So I'm sure they've seen good stuff from Tua in practice, and they're thinking, let's develop this guy. He knows the offense probably by now. he looked good in the 2 minutes that he got. So I think it's time to hand over the keys and start to develop Tua as their franchise quarterback.
I disagree. I think they should have stuck with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Tua is, he's not like a Joe Burrow and he's not like a Justin Herbert. He's kind of he's a system guy. And I think they should have. I think Justin Herbert worked out so well because Herbert is such a physically talented quarterback. He can throw the ball really well. I think at this point he's probably my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's looked really well, and I think that's largely due to his physical attributes, his ability to kind of scramble around, buy some time, or stand in the pocket and take hits while throwing the ball 50 yards downfield. And so I don't think Tua will work out in the, if you're going to draw a comparison, I don't think it will be as successful as Herbert has been because I think he's more of a system guy, and I think they should have kept Fitzpatrick in to kind of, continue running the team because they've been playing pretty well so far with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. And I think Tua should have just kind of like taken a back seat until the end of the season and continue to learn and get better in practice.
Yeah, I think it really could have benefited Tua as well, playing an entire season under a veteran like Ryan Fitzpatrick, learning from him. I mean, we saw what happened with Patrick Mahomes after playing a season under veteran Alex Smith. Came out as an absolute stud in his second season. So I would say I would have kept Tua on the bench there.
Nolan, you're saying that it's good for Tua to learn under Ryan Fitzpatrick? But what's the difference in him learning under Ryan Fitzpatrick on the bench than him learning under Ryan Fitzpatrick while playing on the field? I think the Dolphins looked at it and said, yes, this season they're doing good, they're doing better than expected, but I think it's still part of a rebuild season, and they're trying to just get to the experience for the future.
I think there is a difference between Tua developing under Fitzpatrick while playing and developing under Fitzpatrick while on the bench, and I think that's the mentality. I think when you play a full game, you're open to more hits. You can get rattled. You can throw some interceptions. Obviously all these things are going to happen to it anyways, but I think it'd be better for him to handle that adversity as a rookie system QB in his second season after going through that full season of playing under Fitzpatrick on the bench and kind of learning through Fitzpatrick's mistakes. I think it would have been better for Tua's career. I think the time to play Tua is what they did in the game on Sunday. It's to just kind of it's to let him play in those blowout games, whether the Dolphins are getting blown out or they're blowing out whoever, and let him get some minute, probably like 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Let him get some snaps in, let him get some NFL time in. But I think it would have been better for him to continue to play the entire season under Ryan Fitzpatrick on the bench.
And I think it's important to note, like, Ryan Fitzpatrick's been playing pretty well so far this year. It's kind of a tough break for him to have to go to the bench after, carrying this Dolphins team, which many expected not to be so good. They're a young roster with a young head coach. And they've kind of played better than everyone's expected. So I think many people are wondering if he would want out of Miami to go get a starting job somewhere like Dallas. They've been playing terrible. So I want to transition to that. How does everyone feel about the situation in Dallas and if they should make a move for a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Dallas Cowboys are awful. They're probably going to make the playoffs just because they play in such a terrible division, but the Cowboys are absolutely atrocious. I think the hiring, a lot of reports coming out recently about how the players think Mike McCarthy's incompetent, and I think that was a terrible hire on the part of the Cowboys. And I think it was a move by Jerry Jones to continue to maintain his control over the organization. I think they maybe should go get a guy like Fitzpatrick because Andy Dalton's played like terrible and hasn't played a lot this season. So getting a guy like Fitzpatrick who, has played this season and has 5 games now under his belt, 6 games, would be useful to the Cowboys, but I don't think they'll do it. I don't think Jerry Jones has that kind of intellect to think in that kind of a smart manner. I think Jerry Jones is an idiot. And so I don't think they'll go out and get a Fitzpatrick.
This isn't Madden franchise mode. First of all, going out to another team and grabbing a quarterback is a lot harder than it just sounds. And I think, like you said, they're going to win the division under Andy Dalton anyways. They have Dak back next year, it would be silly and stupid to go for Ryan Fitzpatrick because there's no point. There's
The
zero
Dolphins
point.
aren't going to give up Ryan Fitzpatrick either. I mean,
Exactly.
Tua's
Like,
gonna
why
be
would you go
starting
for Ryan Fitzpatrick to play 10 games for you and then Dak comes back and then you still got to pay him?
Yeah, but if you're giving up a 4th-round pick or a 5th-round pick for a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, you could be hoping to make a playoff. I mean, the Cowboys are in first place in the NFC East, as silly as it
Do you
sounded.
think you're good enough to make a playoff run?
Yeah, no, I think.
I mean, they're
that's
going to
what
make the.
they
Sorry.
is a playoff run. Is because they have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. They just need somebody to take advantage of it. I mean, they're terrible on defense, and they have a terrible coaching staff. But I think if you get somebody like a Fitzpatrick, who I think we can all agree is a lot better than Andy Dalton, you can get somebody to kind of manage those offensive weapons. You could, I think that's what they're looking at is, and I don't think that the division is secure either. I think the Eagles, with a lot of their receivers getting healthy, going later in the season, the Eagles could probably make a run at the top of the division. So I think the Cowboys, if they were to go for a guy like Fitzpatrick, to say, we'll give you a 5th-round pick. This guy's old. And we'll give you Andy Dalton too, so you can have that kind of veteran mentorship for Tua, and you get a Fitzpatrick who is, has played pretty well so far and can manage the offense and hopefully secure the NFC East for the Cowboys and maybe make a run.
First of all, I don't think Andy Dalton's as bad as you guys are saying. I know he had an awful game against the Cardinals the other night, but I think that him compared to Fitzpatrick is not worth that 5th-round pick. It's not worth that other thing, especially when you have a top-tier quarterback like Dak Prescott coming back next year. It's just not worth the trade.
And I think this Cowboys game has just shown really how important Dak is to that team and how he affects the players around him. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott even looked so off in that game, fumbling the ball twice, which is the total amount of fumbles that he had last season. And I mean, when the run game doesn't get going like that, you force the ball into Andy Dalton's hands. You don't really want your game depending on Andy Dalton. I mean, Dak Prescott still leads the league in passing yards, even after missing this week. So, I don't know. I just think that this game has shown how much Dak means to that team.
I actually would advocate for a guy like Jerry Jones to go get Ryan Fitzpatrick. And as crazy as it sounds, if Dak is not on the Cowboys next season, the Cowboys could be, drafting a quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick could be there this year to help them make a playoff run, but also next year as they try to develop a younger quarterback if they get rid of Dak Prescott. I mean, it's not crazy to think that they might not pay him. I mean, he's coming off of a gruesome injury, and Jerry Jones was reluctant to pay him before he got injured. So we'll see, but I think sorry.
You talk about that, but I'm saying if they lose Dak Prescott, they're going to go and get another quarterback one way or another. That's a given. And you're saying they're not going to pay Dak Prescott, but last week I asked you if you think they're going to pay Dak Prescott, and I think all of you said you thought they were.
I mean, when your quarterback is leading the league in passing yards, still after missing a week due to injury, I mean, you have to pay him, right? He obviously has such a huge impact on this team.
I think they should, but that doesn't mean that they will.
No, I think he's definitely worth the money, but I think the question is whether the worst owner in sports, Jerry Jones, will hand him the check that he deserves.
What do you think he deserves? Because his franchise tag now, if they franchise tag him again, it's up at $36 million, which is still on the higher end of quarterbacks being paid in the league.
I love Dak, and I think he's probably worth. I think he's a top 5. Yeah, I think he's a top 5 QB in the league. I think he's up there. He's definitely not like a Russell Wilson or a Patrick Mahomes, but he's up there. I think he's probably worth the money that he asks for. I believe in Dak, and I believe in his ability to run this Cowboys offense and to find success with this team. I think it really comes down. I think the Cowboys' ability to consistently win games comes down to their ability to just play competent defense, which is something they've struggled mightily with this year.
I think this is Dak's last game as a Cowboys. I think he won't be suiting up in a Cowboys uniform after that week. This will be his last game as a Cowboys, and he'll be moving on to a different team.
So where do you think he's going to go?
Sorry, I want to move on because we're running out of time here. Let's look at some of next week's spotlight games. What stands out to everybody?
I think the game that sticks out to me is probably Seahawks Cardinals. Close second would be Lions Falcons, but Seahawks Cardinals is definitely an interesting one. That's a that's a high powered offensive showdown. I mean, the over under right now is 56.5 points total for each team, or for both teams. Seahawks currently are 3.5 point favorites. I think it'll definitely be interesting to see how two teams who haven't been great defensively handle the other's really, really good offense. And I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one personally.
Is anyone not going to take the Seahawks? Anyone think the Seahawks will lose?
I think it's gonna be a game.
I agree, but I don't see the Seahawks losing.
After what the Cardinals did to the Niners, or not to the Niners, who did the Cardinals just play?
The
Cowboys.
Yes, right, the Cowboys. They absolutely beat down on the Cowboys, who I know have been a weak defense, but they show that they can be a contender in the NFC.
Oh, yeah, I got a question for all of you. Who looks like the quicker, better mobile quarterback right now, Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray. Hands down, Kyler Murray.
Quick, nimble, and he looks like he's taking right after Lamar Jackson, going for rushing totals.
I mean, Lamar is a better rushing quarterback. If you're talking about the better overall quarterback, maybe Kyler. I mean, he's more of a dual threat guy because I think his passing is way more of a threat than Lamar's. But in terms of rushing, I think Lamar last season was the best rushing quarterback. That was the best season for a rushing quarterback of all time.
I'm talking about.
I think Kyler is head and shoulders the better quarterback. At least definitely through this year. Obviously, Kyler doesn't have an MVP like Lamar does, but I think a lot of what Lamar's MVP was last year was his ability to run the ball and his rushing ability as a quarterback. I think Kyler definitely is hands down the better thrower of the ball, and I think as far as an ability to lead a high-powered offense goes, I think I'd rather have Kyler in that position than Lamar.
I mean, last game, Kyler completed 9 passes and led his team to a 38-10 victory over the Cowboys. So if that doesn't show you the danger that his running game can bring, I mean, I don't know what does.
My game to look forward to next week is the Raiders against the Buccaneers. The Raiders coming up against that win on the Chiefs, then get a bye week for John Gruden to go over game plan, get everything ready. The Buccaneers coming off this blowout to the Green Bay Packers. I think this would be a close game. Two teams who are on the positive trend going at it. And if the Raiders win, picture the Raiders winning against the Chiefs and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are your thoughts on the rest of the season for the Raiders and where they're going to contend?
I think that would be a massive win and put them right into playoff contention, even rumblings of Super Bowl contention. But I think there's no chance they beat the Buccaneers. Tom Brady, that defense, Gronk getting going, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, no chance. For me, the game of the week, Titans versus Steelers, the two best teams in the AFC right now for me. You look at their running games, they both have quarterbacks who are playing amongst the highest levels in the NFL, and defenses, Steelers have top 3 defense in the league. Parker thinks one of the best in recent history. That's got to be the game of the week. I think that's one of the games of the season. Whoever wins, I think, immediately becomes, a Super Bowl favorite or a contender alongside the Bucs there.
Do you know who's favored?
I do not.
Who thinks Steelers? I think Steelers are going to win. I just think the Titans coming that close against the Texans is a bad sign. I think the Steelers are the more dominant team, and their defense probably won't be able to shut down Derrick Henry in that offense, but they'll limit them into a point where it'll come down to the Titans' defense stopping Big Ben, Chase Claypool, James Conner in that offense.
Yeah, currently the Steelers are a 2-point favorite against the Titans.
Wow. All right, I think that wraps up our NFL segment. Thanks for all the insight. Good discussion. We'll talk to you boys next week. See ya. All right, as we move into our college football segment now, I'm joined by Alex and Leon. One of the headlines last week, Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers absolutely dominated Georgia Tech in the AAC. Trevor Lawrence threw for a career-high 404 yards, 24 of 32 on passing, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he only played one half of the game. So I turn to you, Alex. What stood out to you in that performance? Absolute domination by Clemson.
Yeah, that was just utter dominance up and down the field from the Tigers. I mean, Lawrence 5 touchdowns. I think that's the biggest one that stands out to me. Um, I mean, he was just throwing it all over the yard. Those Alabama receivers had so much space to work with. I mean, it looked easy for him. And I think the question is now is that a reflection of how good Trevor Lawrence is, or is that a reflection of how bad the ACC is? I mean, obviously we know ACC is pretty weak. They had a bunch of teams they had 3 teams in the top 5 this past AP Top 25. I think it was UNC, Notre Dame, Clemson. Clemson was really the only team of those 3 that looked like they were really strong. UNC lost to Florida State. That's a big time loss for UNC. A lot of people had them as like a top 10 team. I wouldn't really agree with that. Notre Dame looked really weak against Louisville. So obviously this is an ACC conference that isn't really as talented as like the SEC or the Big Ten. And so, I think, Lawrence obviously has looked really well throughout his college career. Only has that one loss in the championship game to LSU. But I think a lot of his production, I guess, his crazy numbers and stat lines that he can put up is largely a reflection of how bad the ACC is. I definitely don't think he'd be as good against like an SEC defense.
All right, Leon, my question for you. Trevor Lawrence, projected number 1 overall pick. Hopefully he can turn around a franchise like the Jets or the Washington football team, maybe the Giants. How do you think his game translates to the NFL, and who's your NFL quarterback comparison?
I believe his game would translate to the NFL really well. He's a great pocket passer. He can scramble out, escape the pocket, and throw it on a dime like he's shown against not really good competition in the ACC, but he still has shown that he's able to do that. If I had to compare Trevor Lawrence to someone, I'll have to compare him to the former alumni of Clemson, Deshaun Watson. Both big quarterbacks, stand in the pocket. They can escape, throw it on a dime, and they just have all the intangibles to be a great quarterback in the NFL.
Wow, Deshaun Watson. That's I think he lacks the athletic ability that Deshaun Watson has. I actually like the comparison that most people make in Andrew Luck, more of a pocket passer who can throw on the run than a scrambler. Deshaun Watson's, I would consider him more of a scrambler, but
I disagree with that. I think you look at the college football semifinal last year against Ohio State.
That's
he
true.
got in the sports for 2 big runs. I think one of them was a touchdown run. I mean, he's definitely not. I think the Andrew Luck comparison is an interesting one. Obviously both of them were like really hyped up guys. Andrew Luck out of Stanford. I think the Colts admitted to tanking for Andrew Luck. But obviously there's a lot of hype around them, really good quarterbacks. But I think I agree with Leon and the Deshaun Watson comparison. They both are really, really good athletes. They can run, they can throw. They're big, physically intimidating guys. Andrew Luck is an interesting one just because of the pocket passer comparison. But I'm with Leon on here. I like the athleticism comparison with Watson and Lawrence.
Yeah, I think either way, it's a good comparison for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, both guys who have had some massive success in the league. Obviously, Andrew Luck retired a little early, but Deshaun Watson just signed a massive contract with the Texans. They've made some playoff runs.
Yeah, took the Texans around.
Yep. But I think Trevor Lawrence has all the attributes you're looking for, right? He's a leader. He's smart. He's huge. I think he's 6'4", 6'3". He's tough. He's proven he does it against the best teams. And I think he's got to be the number 1 overall pick. And I think if the Jets or the Giants or the Washington football team do not want a quarterback at number 1, if they end up with the first pick, I think you've got to trade it for 5 first-round picks. I think a team like maybe the Buccaneers or the Saints, a team, Colts, teams with older quarterbacks, you got to be looking towards the future. I think Trevor Lawrence is worth 4 or 5 first-round picks, especially if they're later round picks. I think he's a transformational quarterback for sure. All right, let's move on now to our Georgia-Alabama game. Last week, Leon had a hot take with the Roll Tide prediction. He called Najee Harris.
Hot take, though.
That's a hot take, man. You called Georgia. He called Bama.
Take Alabama. I mean, think it was a loud
He,
take.
he didn't just pick Alabama. He picked them to dominate Georgia, and that's exactly what they did. You look at Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris. I thought Mac Jones looked as good as they need him to be. A guy who can get it to his weapons in open space. He made a couple great throws. So, Alex, what stood out to you in that blowout win over your Georgia Bulldogs?
I think it has to be how dominant Najee Harris was. I mean, this was one of the things that I saw going into this game was, a really, really talented Georgia defense. I think they'd let up like 12 points a game coming into this. They had a staunch run defense. I mean, I don't think they'd given up a rushing touchdown in like up until this point in the season, and Najee Harris just rolled over them essentially, like 30 carries for like 120 something yards, something like that. He had I mean, he looked really, really good, and I think that's what stuck out to me was that dominance from Najee. And I think it was 31 attempts for 152 yards and a touchdown. And so I think that kind of dominance wasn't really something I expected. I picked Georgia largely because of Georgia's defense. And like it didn't pan out. Nick Saban had the answer for everything that defense threw at him, and Stetson Bennett, in order to win the game, Georgia couldn't have Stetson Bennett make the big mistake, and he did a few times, and that really cost him.
Yep, I agree. All right, Leon, those weapons for Mac Jones, not out of the backfield, but out wide. Look at Devontae Smith. You look at Jalen Waddle. What stood out to you about those guys?
It seems that Alabama has not missed a beat on the receiving after losing Jared Judy and Henry Ruggs. They did not miss a beat still having Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. Looks like Alabama has not missed a beat after losing Jared Judy and Henry Ruggs. And it just showed that Nick Saban is 22-0 against his former assistant coaches, and it just shows that Nick Saban has owned Kirby Smart throughout the years. And I don't think Georgia can beat Alabama in the SEC championship if they make it there, or in the college semifinals if they even make it there too.
Yeah, I'm totally with Leon on this one. I think Alabama is head and shoulders the best team in the SEC. I mean, who would you put as a second place team? Florida's looked hot and cold throughout the season. They lost to Texas A&M. Tennessee's looked terrible in the East. Georgia obviously just got dominated up and down the field by Alabama. And the West is probably just as weak. Auburn has looked terrible. They probably should be 1-3 right now. Lost to South Carolina of all teams. Nearly lost to Arkansas too. Arkansas looked really good, by the way. And Texas A&M out of the West, that's maybe somebody who could compete for the West, but it would take Alabama losing some games that they really shouldn't lose going down the stretch. So yeah, I mean, I think Alabama's probably the team to beat in the SEC, head and shoulders above the rest. And it'll be something to watch looking forward.
Yeah, I think Alabama's a force to be reckoned with. But I want to focus on the Alabama receivers, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, among others. Alex, how do you think they've done in replacing guys like Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs, who were top 15 picks in the NFL draft?
I think they've more than filled their shoes. Devontae Smith has looked really, really good last year. Obviously, he had, a year ago with Ruggs and with Jeudy and also with Waddle, who made an impact in his freshman year. He probably didn't have as many opportunities to show off his talent, but he's definitely been given the stage now, and he's looked really good. In the Georgia game, he had 11 receptions for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. Waddle had 6 receptions for a touchdown. Mechie looked really good too, 50 yards for a touchdown. I think these Alabama receivers, they really haven't missed a beat. John Mechie has stepped up. Jalen Waddle stepped up. Devontae Smith has stepped up, even with the loss of Ruggs and with Jeudy. I think it is a testament to Alabama's ability to develop and first of all, recruit talent at receiver and then develop these guys into NFL prospects. I mean, look at all the great Alabama receivers. You got Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Amari Cooper in the NFL right now. You got Ruggs, you got Jeudy. soon to be joining them is Smith, Waddle, and Mechie. I think Alabama probably has the best weapons in college football right now, especially given Najee Harris running the ball too. Certainly make Mac Jones' job look pretty easy.
For sure. They made him look fantastic against that supposedly strong Georgia defense. All right, I want to get to the Big Ten here, obviously headlined by Ohio State's return. Alex, what are you looking for in the Big Ten in Ohio State's return?
I think the biggest thing I'm looking out for is Ohio State domination. I can't really see them losing given the schedule that they were handed out at the beginning of the season. Some controversy with that schedule. I think Ohio State probably, favorites going into this Big Ten season. I can't really see anyone competing with them. Wisconsin lost Jonathan Taylor. That was kind of their guy last year. And that allowed them to kind of control clock with JT, and they don't really have that ability so much this year. Penn State's an interesting team, but Journey Brown, their running back's done for the year. And so I think of those two teams, the two teams that have the ability to compete with Ohio State, those being Penn State and Wisconsin, are largely weak this year. And I can't really see anyone beating Ohio State. Maybe Michigan, but we obviously know how that's gone for the past, 8 years now. Ohio State's just kind of mopped the floor with Michigan and made Jim Harbaugh look like an idiot. So, yeah, I can't really see Ohio State losing any games this season or the Big Ten.
Speaking of Michigan, I want to talk quickly about Jim Harbaugh. ESPN Radio, Mike Greenberg was talking about he's entering the final year of his contract. He's the only coach he's one of the only coaches to be entering the final year of his contract. He was proposing that maybe an NFL team like the Jets would want to hire him, and he would want to leave Michigan because he hasn't been as successful as many had hoped. Just curious, Leon, what are your thoughts on that? Should a team like the Jets hire or, target Harbaugh?
Yeah, that'd be a good option for the Jets. I believe Adam Gase is a clown, and Adam Gase cannot run an offense. You can just see he put up 0 points last week. So I'd like a coaching change to happen in New York with the Jets, and any coach except Adam Gase, it's fine. Jordan Harbaugh could be a good addition.
Agreed. I think Adam Gase is the worst coach in the NFL. Needs to be fired immediately. I think he's ruining Sam Darnold's development, and he's gonna, hopefully, I hope for the Jets' sake that they can go get Trevor Lawrence. But if they keep Adam Gase, which I can't imagine they would do, but if they did, I think he would even ruin Trevor Lawrence's development. So I hope he's gone. Well, thanks for the insight. We'll talk some more college football next week. Thanks, boys. All right, now we're starting our baseball segment. I'm joined by Nolan and Alex. The World Series just started up between the Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays just sent home the Astros. Nolan, what stood out to you there?
The Astros pulling off a big comeback after going down 3-0. First team to force a Game 7 after going down 3-0 since the 2004 Boston Red Sox against the New York Yankees in the ALCS. Actually, the only two teams to do it in the history of the MLB. But they just ran out of magic in Game 7, couldn't pull it off, so Rays sent them home there in Game 7. This year is actually the first time in MLB history that both the ALCS and the NLCS go to a Game 7. We see in the NL, the Dodgers coming back from a 3-1 deficit over the Braves and actually pulled that one off and ended up winning it. Actually, Brendan and I both predicted that one last week, so good job to us. So now we've got a very intriguing Rays versus Dodgers World Series. First time the Rays have been in the World Series since 2008 when they lost to the Cardinals. So we'll see how this series goes.
In your opinion, what's the most intriguing matchup in this World Series?
Like pitching matchup?
Yeah, just like storyline heading into it.
Well, I think I'm very excited to see how the rookie Dustin May does for the Dodgers. And then I'm very excited to see how this Rays pitching staff does with Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell. A lot of talent there on that side. Obviously, Game 1, Tyler Glasnow looked really off, giving up 6 walks and 6 earned runs in just 4 1/3 innings, throwing 112 pitches. his stuff was just not there tonight. I mean, he was throwing his fastball at about 102 miles an hour, his changeup sitting at 93, which is absolutely disgusting, absolutely unhittable. But when you're walking guys like this, you cannot expect to win a baseball game against overpowered offense like the Dodgers when you're walking 6 guys, giving up 6 runs. So.
And obviously last night, we're recording on Wednesday here, so Tuesday night, the Dodgers beat down on the Rays. Clayton Kershaw put up a great game, right, for the Dodgers, which you don't really expect from Kershaw, who's been really inconsistent in the playoffs throughout his career, despite being a great regular season pitcher. And then Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger obviously headlining there. Mookie Betts played phenomenal last night, right, Nolan?
Yeah, that's right. Mookie Betts 2 for 4 with an RBI. Very good game there. And then we had Cody Bellinger with the big home run last night to get the Dodgers offense rolling. But Clayton Kershaw with a very solid performance on the mound, which we have not come to expect from him in the playoffs. He's struggled throughout his career in the playoffs. 8 strikeouts through 6 innings with just 1 earned run on a home run. So very solid performance there by Kershaw. And then the Dodgers bullpen came in and shut the door. Very big play late in that game from Victor Gonzalez with the line drive coming back to him, the double play turned, which would have been a 2-run base hit if he had not made that play, which would have made the game 8-5. Very lot more manageable than an 8-3 deficit there in the 7th inning. So very good job there by the Dodgers pitching staff. And then obviously the Dodgers offense looked very, very good there, stringing together 10 hits, 8 runs. I mean, just a great performance all around there from the Dodgers.
So I'm looking at the betting for tonight, Rays Dodgers game. The over/under currently sits at 8 runs, and the bet percentage right now is 83% of people betting on the under. So if you're a bettor right now, are you taking the over or the under on 8 runs for this game tonight?
For me, I'm gonna take the over there. We do have a very good pitcher performance with Blake Snell going up against the rookie Dustin May. But, I mean, what I've seen from this Dodgers offense and even this Rays offense, they've been putting up runs on runs in this playoffs. Dodgers with Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Trey Turner, Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger. I mean, just so much talent there in that lineup. I think they put up at least 5 runs, maybe 4. I do think the Rays are going to take the victory in this game. I think they bounce back from the Game 1 loss. I think Blake Snell holds his own in the start. I think the Rays bullpen may struggle a little bit later in the game against the Dodgers offense, but I think the Rays come out with the victory there. I'm going to say 6-4, 6-5.
All right. Look forward to a good series here between the Dodgers and Rays. Hope for the better team to win, honestly. Thanks for the insight, Nolan. Thanks for the help, Alex. Talk to you guys later. All right, as we segue now into our WNBA segment, I'm joined by WNBA extraordinaire, Bit Levine. Bit, who won the WNBA Finals this year?
The Seattle Storm won the 2020 WNBA Finals, sweeping the Las Vegas Aces in the best-of-5 series with a dominant 92-59 win on Tuesday in Game 3. This is Seattle's 4th championship in overall and 2nd in the last 3 years, previously winning it all in 2004, 2010, and 2018, according to CNN.
All right, and I believe WNBA Finals MVP was awarded to Breanna Stewart, UConn alum. Do you think this decision was justified, or should it have been Sue Bird?
Although Breanna Stewart made it look like she was doing everything with ease and very good player, Sue Bird, let's not forget that Sue Bird was 39. 40 now, because just 2 days ago was her birthday. So, still doing that at 39 is pretty impeccable.
Yep, definitely impressive. And looking forward to next season, who are your favorites heading into the next season?
I would say definitely everyone on the Seattle Storm team. If not, any exceptions would be Diana Taurasi and the Phoenix Mercury, because Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird are the GOATs.
All right. And I believe the head coach of the Dallas Wings just resigned. who do you think should be their next head coach, or who do you think it will be?
I think Lisa Leslie, former WNBA great, or Becky Hammond. She's the assistant coach of the San Antonio Spurs. But I think that Becky Hammond should also stick with her role in the NBA because it's empowering other women to join the NBA staff and stuff. But Lisa Leslie, she led the expansion team triplets to a championship title in their first season and won Coach of the Year in 2019 in the big 3v3 tournament. So I think Lisa Leslie would be the top pick.
All right, those are some names to watch out for. Thanks for the insight. Thanks.
Now we move on to our soccer segment this week. I'm joined by Thaddeus, Nick, and Austin. First day of the Champions League was yesterday. Some interesting results from that. The biggest one that sticks out to me is PSG and Man United. Man United, the 2-1 victory over PSG at home. To PSG were playing at home. Austin, I know you're a big Man United fan. What were your biggest takeaways from that game?
I think it was the best performance United have had all season. I mean, the defense was it was unbreakable. You know, I mean, even with the pace of Kylian Mbappe, he was kind of no match for, Axel Tuanzebe and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think Rashford was great. I think he had a lot of shots on goal. Obviously scored the winning goal very late in the game, the 88th minute. So I think overall it was a great performance from us.
What were your thoughts on David De Gea? He had a few really good saves. Obviously, he's been known for having some lapses, some mishaps in the past. What did you think of his performance in this game, and how do you view his play going forwards?
I mean, again, I think it was his best performance all season. I mean, he really had a couple of really game-winning saves. Kurzawa with a point-blank shot, blocked it with his leg. Incredible save on a shot from Kylian Mbappe. And now, obviously, that may not be an example that you can look at for the rest of the season. I hope it is, because, I mean, De Gea in his prime was the best goalkeeper in the world. And I hope that he can regain that form. And yesterday shows that form is still there. It just kind of needs to be refound, I guess.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to turn to another game now. Chelsea-Sevilla 0-0 draw. Thaddeus, with all of the weapons that Chelsea signed over the offseason, the transfer window, put up 0 goals against the Sevilla team. What were your biggest takeaways from that game?
Well, I didn't get to watch the game, but with looking at the reviews and watching highlights and clips, I think that Sevilla, their defense and their goalie had a pretty solid game, but I didn't think it was anything unreal. But I think it was really just the lack of they didn't look like a team as much as they should. It seemed like certain players weren't fitting where Lampard needs them to fit. Werner wasn't doing everything he needed, and it just wasn't their best performance as a team in general.
How do you think they could fix that moving forwards? How do you think they could?
I think they could, instead of sticking to the same play that Lampard really wants, he could adapt, because Werner and Havertz and Ziyech are all such incredible players, but they play with their own certain style. And I think Lampard, maybe when buying, because he was given all this money, he didn't really think about who fits the style that he needs. And if he can mold what he wants Chelsea to be into fitting how they play, I think it could really bring together their offense.
Interesting. Let's move on to another Champions League game. Still has yet to be played. This one, in my opinion, is the most interesting game of today. Bayern Munich versus Atletico Madrid. Nick, how do you like Atletico's chance to possibly come off with an upset during this game?
Honestly, I don't see a huge chance in Atletico upsetting Bayern. I think, if anything, if that does happen, it's going to be a very, very close game because, as we've seen before, Bayern this past year has shown that they're the best team in Europe. And that with ease, they can easily take over teams. Like, we all saw the score of the Barcelona and Bayern game. Like, Messi wasn't the leader that they needed. So, I mean, Bayern took over that. They took over Europe last year, and I don't see Atletico being a huge threat to Bayern.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's move on to the Premier League now. Big concern could be a big concern for Liverpool. 2-2 draw versus Everton. Obviously, there's a big gap in talent between those two teams, and yet Liverpool is only able to come away with a draw. And Van Dijk was injured as well. I'll pose this question to all three of you. How do you like Liverpool's chances to repeat as champions of the Premier League, given the fact that Van Dijk is now hurt and Liverpool haven't had gotten up to the start that they did last year?
I guess I'll go first. So, I think, Liverpool is a great team. Klopp's a great coach, and whether or not, like, if Van Dijk's out, they still have some very solid defenders. Even if you look at statistics, their defense has been very bad this year, and yet they've still managed to hold a decent season. Not considering how well they did last year, but just in general, it's not been horrible. Everton are the leaders in the Premier League, so I think that I could still see them. I don't know if they're gonna win it this year, but I think they're still shooing for a top 4 spot. But I think it's difficult to predict. Who's gonna win?
So if not Liverpool, who do you like? You said it's difficult to predict. Obviously, it's tough to see that far out into the future. But who would you think is the number one best positioned team to win the Premier League?
Personally, I'd say Man City, but I could also see, like, as a bit of an unpopular opinion, I could see Tottenham and Arsenal if they really figured out how to get their defense and together. I could see them both coming through because they both have very strong bases with Tottenham having Son and Kane having like their best seasons ever, and like Arsenal has the strong core of Aubameyang, Partey, and like David Luiz and Mustafi have played pretty well this season. So if they can figure out how to get everything together and come together, then I could see them both doing very well.
Pose the same question I asked Thaddeus to Austin. Austin, who do you think are the current best positioned team to win the Premier League?
I think this season, this may be another season like 2015 where kind of a dark horse team could win it. And I honestly, at this moment, I think Everton are in their best position. They have one of the best midfields currently in the league. They're top of the table. Granted, this is coming into game week 6, so there's a lot of room for them to fall still, but I think, Carlo Ancelotti is a great coach. And they have Dominic Calvert-Lewin up top with Richarlison, and I just think that's, again, one of the best forward pairs, at least, in the league, probably top 4. And it's going to be unpopular to say that, I think, but I really do believe that they're, if not challenging for the title this year, they're kind of a shoo-in for that top 4 spot, at least. And we may see Everton next year in the Champions League.
So if Everton is to finish in the top 4, who doesn't make it? Obviously, there's a lot of really talented teams in the Premier League this year. Man United, Tottenham, City, Liverpool, definitely. So if Everton is to get that top 4 finish, who is left out of that top 4? And who's left out of a Champions League slot next year?
I think at this moment, unfortunately, it'd probably end up being Chelsea with just how they've performed. They just haven't been good enough. Now, can Frank Lampard turn that around within the next, 2 months or so? I hope so. Just, for his sake and for the club's sake, because they've spent close to $300 million on players this summer, and they're no better than they were last year. United obviously have had a very rocky start to the season. Now that could just be a lack of preseason fitness or a lack of motivation, I guess, from that team. But United, again, are a club that may not end up in that top four. And Tottenham's another one that just may not have the team spirit, I guess, that you need to get there. They may have great quality, but they may just not have that togetherness that they need.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Let's shift to a news story that has come out recently. Allegedly, there's a few, I think it's like a dozen teams that are currently in talks to create a European, or quote unquote European Super League or European Premier League, consisting of the best teams from the best leagues in Europe. Nick, what do you think of the realism or the actuality that this actually goes through, and how do you think that would affect competitions like the Champions League and how it would affect the soccer world in general?
Honestly, I think in the soccer world, this would be like a thing that everyone wants to see. Like, who doesn't want to see the best clubs from the top clubs from each country in the top leagues play against each other? I mean, that'd be amazing to watch. But I think with the UEFA League and you have the Champions League, I don't see a real need for it. So I think it's very like props to the idea. Like, I think it's a very creative idea, but I feel like we already have a league that is producing content from different teams all over different countries in Europe.
And Thaddeus, what are your thoughts on this European Premier League concept?
I think I think it could work, but I agree with Nick. There isn't really a need. Most leagues are still like very competitive, or like the top 5 leagues are still very competitive. So, like, I don't know if it's if it's really necessary, especially this season with no one who you would expect to be on top is on top. Like, it's PSG's not on top, Bayern's not on top, nor Real Madrid nor Barcelona are on top, and none of the big 6 are on top in the Prem. So it's really like it says something about how great the leagues we have now are, and I don't think we really would need anything else.
Well, I mean, okay, so this season aside, is a league like Serie A, or is a league like the Bundesliga or Liga in France, are they really that competitive with PSG, Bayern, Juventus pretty much dominating up and down the league? I mean, really, the only competition we've seen in the past few years is a little bit from Serie A. The Premier League, obviously the most competitive league. That's why it's the most popular worldwide. And then what is it? Sorry, La Liga as well, with Bayern and Real Madrid swapping first place. Like one might propose it'd be interesting to see how PSG and Bayern play, against each other consistently throughout the season. I'll pose it to you, Austin. What are your thoughts on this Premier League concept?
I really don't think that it's a good idea. For one, I think it gives an unfair advantage to the winning teams or the winning teams out of, the leagues that play. At the current plan they're talking about now could be hundreds of millions of euros worth of rewards at the end of that Premier League season, depending on who wins. And obviously with the money that gets pumped into soccer now, I just really think that would kill lower leagues. I mean, it just would not be good for any of these teams that are being promoted from, League One to the Championship, or the Championship to the Premier League, or the French second division or Spanish second division, getting promoted up to those top leagues, because they'd just get bumped back down every single year. There'd be no room with the money coming into those top clubs for them to do anything, because those top clubs would always dominate. I think it could ruin a lot of what we see as good soccer now.
Interesting. Okay, a lot of interesting thoughts in this segment. Thank you all for joining us, and we're going to move on to something new now.
All right, that concludes episode number 2 of the E.O. Smith Sports Talk podcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any feedback, questions, or if you'd like to join the team, feel free to reach out to me at rainerb22@eosmith.org or follow us on Instagram at EOS Sports Talk Club. Also, we ask that you please take a minute to give us a subscription and a like on this video, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
This podcast was edited by Gabe Aguero.